So the first thing that I would like to show you to is how to import or create cost databases using Open BIM Quantities. Okay, so this is going to be the first step, because then we'll keep going and we will use the information from these costs to then create our Bill of Quantities. Okay, so the first step is have some costs available in the software. I would like to show you two ways to do that. Okay, coming back here to Open BIM Quantities, to create our project database, we use this button here, the project database button, and clicking here, we have a new window with a lot of things here, with some specific tools to create project databases. And this project database could be created for one project, then can be saved, and then you can use the same project database for other projects in the future. So normally we'll have a project database that is more complete than the Bill of Quantity itself, okay? Because probably the project database will have much more items than the Bill of Quantities, because we keep creating, developing, extending the project database according to the project that we do, okay? But let's create our first project database here. So the first thing I'll do, it's going to be set some general parameters. For example, the currency of this database. Let's imagine we are working for South Africa, for example, but could be for any country. Actually, here you can add the symbol, the currency that you want, the symbol of the currency. But if you click here in this blue arrow, you can also find you can look for a specific currency. In this case, let's use the South African rand, and then we can define if the position of this symbol it's going to be on the right or in the left of the numbers. For example, I will maintain on the right. You can also set the decimals of each concept of your project, your Bill of Quantities, the amount of decimals here in the prices, the quantities. So you can set it here. Okay. Let's accept it. Here you can also apply some price adjustments. For example, you can add some coefficients if you want to labor performance coefficients, machinery performance coefficients. You can also add some price coefficients. We'll see some examples in a while, okay? But maybe the most important tools that we have here in this interface are located in this block here, in the edition or in the edit block. Okay, we'll be working a lot with these buttons here to create our project database. Okay, the first thing that we must have here in our database is create some chapters or some folders to organize the items that we'll have in our project database. So to create this structure or these folders, I will use this button here. So I'll click here in the items, and inside of the items, I will add a work section. Okay, and for example, I'll add a code to this work section. Could be, in this case, I will be working with chapters. So the codes in my example, there will be numbers related to the number of the chapters. So the chapter 0, okay, it's gonna be for example preliminary works. Okay, so here I will add in the future all the items related to the preliminary works that we must have in our field before we start constructing. Then I'll add the second section that's going to be the chapter 1 that I'll call, for example, substructure. Okay, that here we'll have the foundations. Maybe we can have some other some basements, things like that. Then I'll add a new folder that is going to be this chapter 2. That's going to be the structure. Okay, or superstructure, let's call that. Then we can have much more than the structure, superstructure. Okay, let's add one more. As you can see, it's very easy to add a chapter or a folder. You just have to click on the place you want to add, and then define a code and define a concept or a name, a title to this folder or chapter. Okay, so very easy. If I'm always clicking here in the main title that is called items or prices, But if I click inside of one of these folders, for example here, and use the same button, actually I'll create a subfolder. For example, here I could create the 2.1 that could be, for example, columns, okay? And then I'll have the columns here. If I click again, I could add, for example, the beams, okay? Oh, sorry, in this case, I forgot to put the number. No problem. Here I can add, I can change it. I can change, actually copy the text and put here on the summary and change the code to the right one here. Okay, so no problem. If you want to change it, everything can be changed here in this area. That is the properties of the item or folder that are selected here in the list. Okay, I can also duplicate things, copy things, delete things. For example, if I would like to copy the bins, I will have the bins here. While I have the same name and the same code, the software tells us that the code is repeated, so it's red, so it's easy to understand that there is something here that is exactly the same. So let's change the code and let's add, for example, another concept like these labs. So easily you can create a new folder based in a first one that was created before. Okay, let's keep creating here some folders. Let's copy, for example, the 3, and let's create the 4. The 4 is going to be, for example, insulation, and let me see, waterproofing, for example, proofing. Sorry, proofing. Sorry, today it's complicated here to write proofing. Okay. Let's create another one. Let's add, for example, the chapter number 5. That's going to be the roofs, for example. The roofs, and for example one more just to have some of them here. 6, that could be internal finishes, for example, internal finishes. Of course, the structure of these chapters you can create in according to the way that you construct. Could be sometimes in some countries, some regions, there are some rules to create these structures. Okay, so here you can create a lot of levels. Here just created 2 levels, so using chapters and subchapters or folders and subfolders, but you can create more levels, just adding more and more work sections inside of the folders that you created. Okay, there is no limits to do that. All right, so with this first structure, we already have the place to locate, to place the items of our cost database. Okay, so I think the first thing that we can do here now is create a new item. Okay, a new item that in the future will be related to a cost. Okay, for example, let's create here a column. For example, a reinforced concrete column. Okay, a squared reinforced concrete column. The columns will be located here in this folder that we created. And now I will use this button here. Instead of adding a work section, I will be adding an item. Okay, so selected here, add item. And let's add a code for this reinforced concrete column. For example, it's going to be RCC 001. For example, I'm just creating a code that I'm creating now. The unit is going to be, for example, cubic meters. Okay, and in this case we are talking about materials. Could be a concept or an item that is unclassified, could be materials, could be machinery, could be labors, and could be a waste that could be generated when we construct this this item. Okay, in this case, these materials, I can define a price. I don't know how much would cost in South African rands 1 cubic meter of all the materials necessary to create this reinforced concrete column. We'll just put some data here. Then we'll calculate it with more precision, but it's just to show you how it works. Okay, so let's add some information about our item, reinforced concrete column. Okay, cast in place, for example, squared 30 by 30 centimeters, for example. Okay, just adding some data here. You can add all the data that you need in this space. Okay, so let's accept. And here we can see that this item was introduced here. Okay, so I can see that we have an item that is called reinforced concrete column cast in place. Now we can add more information here if we want. Reinforced concrete columns, it's going to be column cast in place squared finish. I can add more information here, okay, if we want. We can also change the unit, we can change the rate, okay, we can change the code, and we can see that as we have here a cost database, and this is not a bill of quantities yet, we have here 1 cubic meter, and this is the price, okay? So 1 multiplied by the price, we have the same amount, okay? So this is the easiest way to create one item. This is an isolated item. It's a single item that everything that is related to this cubic meter of reinforced concrete column, it's in this item. Okay. The point is that in sometimes we must add all the materials. We must detail the materials that are necessary to have this cubic meter of reinforced concrete column. Okay, this is too simple. Sometimes we have some items very simple, but I'm sure that in the case of a structural member like this, it wouldn't be simple like that. So we must add concepts to the breakdown. We must detail the materials that are necessary to this cubic meter of reinforced concrete column, and then define the quantities of each material and the cost of each material to have then the final cost of this item. Okay, so how can we do that? First, we must add the materials that are necessary to create this item, and the materials or the machinery or the labors that we will have in Open BIM Quantities, we call it resources, okay? Resources. So for example, let's imagine that here to the reinforced concrete column, we will have some ready mixed concrete, we'll have some steel reinforcement bars, we'll have the formworks, we'll have the construction workers, we'll have the concrete mixer. So all those items that will be inside of this main item, we called resources, okay? So let's add some resources. Then we'll use these resources to add them here in the main item. Okay, so it's the same situation. I'll just click here on the resources tab, and let's add an item. In this case, for materials, for example, I use the code MT and then a number. It's my choice. Okay, material 001. Let's imagine this is gonna be the ready mix concrete, for example. So it's going to be something in cubic meters. It's going to be also materials. And let's imagine the price. It's going to be like, I don't know, 1,500 rands. And let's set the name. For example, C20 megapascals ready mix concrete, for example. And let's accept. So here in the resources, now we have here one item, okay, that costs this price. Okay, let's add another one. That's gonna be, for example, the steel reinforcement bars. So steel reinforcement bars. Let's add here just one type of steel, like B500, for example. It's enough. Just some details are here to have. Of course, you can add more details if you want. This is going to be the material number 2, for example. And the unit in this case is going to be kilograms, for example. Okay, it's going to be also materials, and the price of each kilogram would be like 32. Okay. Let's add one more material. Let's create the formworks, for example. So let's add an item. This is going to be formwork. Let's imagine it's plywood or something like that. In this case, it's going to be the material 003. The units in this case is going to be square meters. It's also materials, and the price would be 500, for example. Let's add. So you can see it's very easy to add materials here. You can also duplicate the materials and then change some properties and have a new material, no problem. plywood. This is going to be, for example, wood, normal wood. Okay, just let's change here. This is going to be a little bit more cheaper, like 350. I don't know. Just to show an example how you can duplicate things here. So here we have some materials in our project database. These materials could be used in different items in the future, okay? So we are creating some materials that can be used in different items. So in the future, you just have to change the price or change one of the properties of this material here in this list. And in all that items where these resources were used before, the information will be updated, okay? So let's add now, for example, some construction workers here, some laborers. For example, in this case, we add another code, L1. In this case, we're talking about hours, and in this case, we are talking about labors. Okay, so let's add here, for example, the construction worker. Okay, I'll add here just one price to the hour. And let's duplicate this guy here. Let's copy this guy and let's create the construction worker 2. That's going to be, for example, the helper in this case. Okay, so one is the chief and the other it's the helper. Like this is going to be like 200, for example, just to have 2 of them here. And to have an example about of a machine, let's add another item that could be, for example, the concrete mixer. Okay. This is going to be also by hours. This is going to be, the code is going to be M001. And this is going to be machinery and auxiliary resources. And the cost of this hour of concrete mixer could be like 70 rands. Probably the numbers I'm using here are not correct. I'm not South African, so I don't know exactly the prices of these materials in South Africa. I'm just estimating a little bit and adding some examples. Please don't look for that, please. Okay, of course you can add the prices according to the reality of the project you are doing. Okay, but here you can see that we have some resources here available. So let's come back now to our reinforced concrete column item, and let's add these items, because maybe the price that we introduced before is not correct. Okay, so the first thing that we'll do, it's going to be delete this data here, because the price it's not correct. If I delete, the software will tell us that the item is in this yellow color, and there's some information here. The price of the concept has not been defined. So if you see in a list of items, some items in yellow color, it means that the price is not okay. Okay, so it's an easy way to find some problems in your cost database. But in this case, we know that it's okay, because we will not add, now we add the resources to this item. So let's, in this case, first add a concept to the breakdown. I'll click here. And the concept that I would like to add is, for example, I will start adding the ready mix concrete. So I know the code, it's MT001. And I'll add to the cubic meter of reinforced concrete column 1 cubic meter of ready mix concrete. Or if I want, I can also add, for example, 5% more, considering that we will have some losses. Okay, so if I accept it here, now I can see that the ready mix concrete was included with a 5% more. This was the price that we introduced here. Okay, and here we have the total price for the reinforced concrete column that now is based on the resources that were included in this concept or in this item. Okay, as you can see, now that title or that concept that was in yellow, now it's again in blue, so everything is okay. Of course, we must keep adding more concepts to the breakdown. Okay, so let's add more concepts. I'll click here in the item where I would like to add more concepts. Let's use this option, and instead of looking for the codes here and adding manually the codes here, we can use this little button here, this blue arrow, and we can access the list of concepts that we have in our cost database. The same resources that are here, but imagine that in the future we will have a huge list with a lot of resources, with a lot of items. It's going to be much more difficult to find the information here. So using the blue arrow, it's going to be much easier, because here you can, for example, search a text, okay, and look, for example, in this case, to all the materials that have the steel word, and in this case, select the code that you want, and then you just have to think about the quantity that you need. In this case, I add like 120 kilograms for cubic meter of reinforced concrete column. And then I have here the steel reinforcement bars with this price. So let's keep adding some items. Let's add, for example, here the form work. Let's select here, for example, plywood. I will need here to deploy to the squared concrete, like let's imagine like 0.35, 0.32 cubic square meters of plywood to these columns. Let's add some labors, for example. So construction worker. Let's add the construction worker. For each cubic meter, we'll need like 5 hours, maybe 4 hours, like this. And to the helper, let's look to the helper here. The helper, let's put a little bit more, like 5.5. Okay, just to add some examples. Of course, we are missing contents here. We must add more items depending on how you are constructing this reinforced concrete column. It's just an example, okay? But the main point is that for each quantity that we introduced here, okay, as we already have the materials with each price created before, now we can see the total cost of this item based on the quantities that we introduced before. Okay, as I said before, if I change the price here, let's change, for example, the price of the ready mix concrete. Let's add here 200 rands, 2,000 rands. So 2,000 rands here, change it also to 2,000. Oh, and the final price it's also changed. Okay, so the best way to update this information in the future is going to be by updating the prices or the concepts here in the resources options. Okay, so as you can see, it's very easy to create resources, items, folders to create your cost database here in Open BIM Quantities. You can also now, for example, duplicate. Let's imagine that this was the squared reinforced concrete column, but if I copy that, I could, for example, create the number 2. That could be, for example, let's just open a little bit here. That could be, for example, the circular section, for example. Okay, circular, like this. So in this case, 30 centimeters of diameter. And maybe here we have the same materials, but let's imagine that the formwork wouldn't be the plywood, or would be another quantity. Let's imagine we need more area of plywood, because maybe we must cut the plywood in different pieces to then create this circular form, and then we have some losses. I don't know, I'm just supposing. So here we can change this, for example, or it's going to be a little bit more complicated to construct it, so we need a little bit more hours of construction workers here. So I changed the quantities here, but the prices, they are the same because the resources are the same. So then we can have here different prices according to the item, but always using the same resources. Okay, as you saw, it was very easy to copy one item and create another based on the first one. Okay, all right, so I think with this little example, you could see how you can create here your items.